So here's the truth. I've been growing online businesses for close to 20 years now. And I've been doing this a long time. But when I look back over the course of my journey as an online entrepreneur and I reflect on what the biggest challenges have been for me, there's one thing that has consistently tripped me up more than just about anything else when it comes to growing my business. And that thing is messaging. I hear this almost every day from online entrepreneurs all over the world in every niche imaginable. How do I communicate in my content? I feel like I'm missing clarity on my message. I'm not sure what words to say in my posts, my emails, my content to attract the kinds of clients that I want. The truth is, if you're feeling this way, you're not alone. There's so many people out there who can teach you marketing strategy, and there's so much information about where to show up, what platform to use, whether or not YouTube ads are right for you, or Facebook ads, or doing a Facebook group. There's so much information out about that it'll make your head spin. But I think there's very few people out there who are teaching messaging who actually understand what it really takes to lead people from stranger to client through your words. And if you've ever wondered how to do that more effectively, if you feel like maybe you're missing clarity or you're not attracting as many of the clients that you want, or maybe you're not attracting the right clients through your content, you're attracting people who can't afford you or people who have a million questions or are hard to work with, a lot of this comes down to the quality of your messaging. And in our episode today, I'm super pumped because we're going to be diving into messaging in detail. And I want to share with you a few of the biggest lessons that I've learned that will help you dial in your messaging so that you can attract more of the types of people you really want to work with more consistently and grow your online business as a result. Super pumped to share this with you. And by the way, this is a small segment of our 3-day marketing workshop, which we just wrapped up last week. Not kidding you when I say this was the most valuable workshop I've ever run. I actually texted my mentor afterwards. I was like, I feel like maybe we gave too much away. There's so much value there for you if you're wanting clarity on your marketing as a whole, if you're wanting to know the biggest strategies, the tactics, the things that I use with so many of my high-level clients, things that I've done to sell over $1 million of coaching, consulting courses online. Literally, like I walk through the whole roadmap inside that workshop. It's insanely valuable. And this messaging training that we're going to be talking about today is really like a small segment of that larger workshop. The recordings from this workshop are now available to purchase on my website. So if you want to go through this workshop, you can check that out. Go to jasonmoss.com. There should be a link at the top that says workshop. You can just click that and you can get the details on how to sign up for that. Insanely valuable, and I would highly recommend signing up. So let's talk about messaging today. The first thing I want to talk about is the goal of great messaging, because a lot of people don't understand why they're creating content or why they're showing up and posting. And they know they need to write words in order to attract people, but they're just showing up and creating a bunch of random things because they don't really understand the goal of great messaging. And once you understand this, it makes it so much easier to reverse engineer and say, okay, well, how do I need to show up on a daily basis in my content in order to reach this goal, in order to do this effectively? So the goal of great messaging, I see, is very simple. The goal of great messaging is to take strangers and to turn them into clients. When you're doing your messaging well, this is what you're doing. You're basically leading people by the hand from, I have no idea who you are, to here's my credit card. And that journey from stranger to client is really about connecting somebody to a specific set of beliefs. In other words, when you first met me, you were probably like, who is this random person on my Facebook feed? Maybe you clicked an ad of mine. You're like, it's just another business coach. It's just someone else trying to sell me something. We have no trust, no relationship. And at some point, through maybe listening to my podcast or maybe watching some of my free videos or wherever else you've been engaging with me, you had a moment where you realized this guy actually knows what he's talking about. This guy actually has expertise. This guy can actually really help me. That is an example of a belief shift, right? Before, you didn't believe that. You just thought I was some random dude on the internet. And then through the power of my content, through showing up in a certain way, I've been able to shift that belief in your mind, to be able to create that moment where you said, oh, this guy actually really knows what he's doing. So that is an example of a belief shift. And what we're doing through our messaging is really nothing more than shifting beliefs. It's connecting somebody to a specific set of beliefs, things that they need to believe in order to want to buy from you. And so when you're doing a good job through your messaging, this is what you're doing. And as a result, you're leading someone by the hand, taking them from, I have no idea who you are, to becoming a client over time through your messaging, through your content. This is the goal of all great messaging. If you're doing messaging well, this is the result. So understanding this really helps you focus your efforts because you're not guessing when you're showing up. It's like, okay, I know what I'm doing here. Now the question becomes, well, how do I actually do that? That's what I want to talk about today. So when it comes to great messaging, there's one phrase that I think really sums up how to message effectively. And this one phrase, if I would have known it earlier, honestly would have made me hundreds of thousands of additional dollars in my business. It's kind of nuts how simple this makes messaging. And I think if I had 15 seconds with you to share with you, like, what is the most important thing you need to know about your messaging in order to attract the kinds of people that you want consistently, these two words, this phrase, really two words, would sum it up. So what is this phrase? Well, it is, be the likable guide. I guess that's 4 words, but likable guide. Those are the 2 words. Likable guide. That is the whole point of your messaging, to show up and position yourself as what I call a likable guide. And this sounds very simple, but it's actually, there's a lot of nuance here. And I want to unpack this a little bit, because when you're doing this well, when you're showing up as a likable guide, this is really the key to helping connect somebody to the things that they need to believe in order to want to work with you. So there's 2 words here, likable and guide. They both mean completely different things. And so I want to break down each of these in detail and show you how you can apply this to your messaging to show up more powerfully and magnetically in your content and in your posts. So the first word here is likable. Pretty simple. We want to do business with people that we like. We don't want to do business with anyone. We don't want to just do business with people who we know can help us solve our problems. We want to do business we feel connected to. We want to do business with people we feel connected to on a deep level, on a human level. So the goal of your messaging, part of the goal, is to build likability, a personal relationship and connection between you and your audience, the person on the other side of the screen who's watching your videos or reading your posts or your emails. Likability is the foundation of building a magnetic personal brand. And when you do this well, there are a number of things that happen as a result. The first thing, probably the most important thing, is that you decommoditize yourself. So many people wonder, I'm doing the same thing as everybody else, essentially. I'm selling the same thing as everybody else. If I'm a health coach, I'm selling, here's how to lose weight. There's 5,000 other people who are selling the same thing. And maybe we have, slightly different methodologies. And certainly that's a way you might differentiate yourself, right? But essentially, we're kind of selling the same outcome. So how do I stand out? How do I differentiate myself in a space where there's so many other people who are doing essentially the same thing as me? Well, here's how you do it. You do it by building likability. And this is the realm of your personal brand. So bringing the fullness of who you are into your messaging allows somebody to form a personal connection and relationship with you, which actually decommoditizes you. Because when someone connects with you on a human level, where they have that moment where it's like, you're not just a business coach, but you're the only person for me, because not only do you help people grow their businesses, but you're also really spiritual. And you're also someone who really likes hiking and dogs and lives in Colorado. And we have this deep human connection. We share values. We feel like we have this common ground between us that is so much more than just the fact that you can help me double my income or revenue in my business. That is when you create a moment for someone else where they go, you are my person. And when someone has that moment, you are in a class of one. You are not in the class of the 5,000 other health coaches who are doing the same thing as you are. You're the only for that person, which means you can charge a lot more, which means you stand out, which means you don't get on calls with people who just want the lowest price because price is not the primary decision point for them. In other words, if I have a choice between different commodities, if I see you as the same as 10 other health coaches or 10 other consultants, then why would I not want the cheapest price? That's the only factor that you've essentially given me because your messaging isn't good to make that decision. So if you're getting people on calls with you who are just looking for the lowest price, it's a sign or a symptom that you haven't done a good enough job building likability and decommoditizing yourself as a result in your business. So building likability is really about doing this. And this is where bringing you into your business and your personal brand fully into your business, your own humanity into your business is the key. So there are really two components to likability, two core components to doing this well. The first is relatability. When you can show up in a way through your messaging that you create common ground between you and someone else, you establish what's called relatability. As an example, I go to Orange Theory out here in Boulder, Colorado. And I just signed up a couple months ago. I'm really enjoying it. It's for anyone, if you've never been, it's like a workout class. It's pretty intense. And they have like a coach who runs the class and a bunch of people show up and it's like some weights and some treadmills and all that. And you got like a heart rate monitor and it puts on the screen. Anyways, this is not like an Orange Theory commercial. This is just, I like Orange Theory. I think it's fun. And so I go to this class and, there are different trainers and coaches who run the classes. But there's this one coach, her name is Bree, who teaches some of the classes. And I always liked Bree. I thought she was a good coach. She was very motivating. But one day after class, I was talking to somebody and they said, did you know that Bree used to live in Livermore, California? And Livermore is where I used to grow up. I grew up in Danville, which is right next to Livermore in California. It's like 20 minutes away. And as soon as this person told me this, I had this moment of like, oh, I just feel so much more connected to Bree. I like her so much more. And I don't even know her. And the truth is, living in Livermore is like such a bland, generic, it's like there are like thousands of people who grew up near me, hundreds of thousands of people who grew up near me. But just knowing that she grew up near me created this moment where I had this thing of like, I like you so much more. It doesn't make any rational sense, but just knowing that thing about her made me feel more connected to her. So this is really what you're doing in your content, in your messaging, where you're showing people who you are, you're bringing aspects of yourself to the table. You create all these little touch points and opportunities for someone to say, oh, I also feel that way, or I also used to live there. I also feel connected to that. This is why talking about yourself is so important and sharing all those things that don't actually feel like directly related to the surface level thing that you do. Talking about where you live, talking about your values, talking about your beliefs, and talking about things that really bug you, and talking about and showing up authentically and honestly as yourself. And a lot of this too is about being polarizing, not by trying to be polarizing, but by dialing up the things that make you different and not being afraid to show people fully who you are. A lot of people, myself included, struggle with this. And I'll just speak on a personal level. The thing that makes this hard for me is I'm always afraid of turning people off. I think it's a very natural human feeling that like we want to be liked. And the way that manifests in a personal brand and in messaging is this like very bland, generic, palatable personal brand where you're showing up in a way where it's just kind of like you're building this very like surface level connection with everyone pretty much. Instead of saying, what are the things that I'm afraid to share because I knew if I shared them, there's going to be a percentage of my audience who are going to be like, screw this person, I need to unsubscribe. Like, for example, I sent an email a while back on my thoughts on Donald Trump. And I was like, this guy is crazy. Like, he's the last person I will want to be president. And you might be listening to this and maybe you're a Donald Trump fan and you like, I'm probably not going to listen to Jason anymore. That's fine. Okay, I respect that. Or maybe you're like, wow, thank God that Jason had the guts to say that. And also I feel that way too. And now I feel so much more connected to Jason because I see him as not just this like bland generic business coach, but we also have this like common ground around like our political beliefs. So that's an example of sharing something that on a certain level is like, there's some vulnerability there. I mean, I've shared it enough that I don't feel a lot of tension around it anymore. It just feels kind of neutral for me. But I remember when I sent the email out initially, I was like, ooh, this is going to ruffle some feathers. And I got like 500 people unsubscribed. And I also got like 100 emails back from people who were like, I need to work with you now. Thank you so much for saying this. This is like the best email I've ever gotten from you. So what relatability is about is getting out of this land where we're trying to be everything for everyone and whitewashing all of the parts of you that make you polarizing and magnetic to a small percentage of people, and being boldly, unapologetically yourself. What you want is for 10 people to follow you and 7 people to be like, this person's crazy, I need to unsubscribe. And like 3 people to be like, this person's amazing. Versus what most people do in their personal brands is they create this kind of whitewashed, bland, generic, personality that they show the world. They just show people the things that are like, okay, they're not going to piss anybody off. And then like everyone kind of is like, oh, I kind of like this person, but I don't really have a deep opinion or perspective on them. That's not the kind of messaging that gets you clients. Or it's the kind of messaging that gets you what I would call transactional buyers. People who are just coming to you for the surface level thing that you do, but they're not soul-aligned clients. There's a big difference between these two things. When you show up and you bring the fullness of who you are into your content, what you do is you create soul-aligned clients, which are clients that are not just coming to you because they want the surface-level thing that you can help them with, but clients that are coming to you because they feel connected to you on a human level. And these are the kinds of clients who not just buy from you once, but buy from you again and again and again. They're the kinds of clients who have much lower refund rates, who have much better experiences, who you enjoy working with on a much deeper level, who you wake up in the morning, you're like, thank God these people are in my world. I love my clients today. The people who work with us inside our accelerator program or one-to-one with me, the best clients I've ever had. So many days I wake up, I'm like, I can't even believe I get paid to do this. And all this has been a result of understanding this concept of likability and relatability as it relates to that, and bringing myself more fully into my messaging, into my content, showing people more of who I am, creating more of those touch points and those moments where I can establish relatability with others. Not everyone, but the right people in my audience. So how can you bring more of who you are into your messaging? How can you show people more of the parts of yourself that maybe you're afraid to share? Great questions to journal on and ask yourself. Now, relatability, which we just talked about, is one component of building likability in a personal brand and your messaging. But there's another piece of this as well, which is celebrity. And celebrity is kind of the counter force to relatability. Relatability establishes common ground. It makes people feel close to you because it makes them feel like they're kind of on the same level as you. Like we share interests, we share values, we share beliefs. Celebrity is all about this pedestal moment. And when you can create celebrity through your messaging, what you do is you allow somebody to have that moment where they look up to you and they see you as someone that they want to aspire to be like. When we look at who we follow on social media, who we engage with online, who we want to surround ourselves with as human beings, what you'll find is we surround ourselves with people who share our values and our beliefs. In other words, people who we relate to, people who are like us. We also surround ourselves with people who we want to be like. People who represent a possibility for our lives, a possibility for ourselves that we haven't fully stepped into yet, a part of us that we aspire to be. Maybe we're leaning into, but we're a little afraid we're not fully there yet. I want to surround myself with multiple 7-figure, 8-figure entrepreneurs because that's where I'm going. I'm not quite there yet in my business. I'm doing very well, but we're not there yet. So being in a room with people like that is expansive for me. It helps ground me more fully into who I really want to be. And the same thing goes for your ideal clients and for the people in your audience. We're always feeling magnetized and attracted to those people who we see as people we aspire to be more fully like. And so when you can create celebrity in your business, what you do is you kind of put yourself on a pedestal a little bit and you create a lot more magnetism in your messaging. So this could be as simple as I'll give you an example. In our business, I talk a lot about how much money I make. $100,000 launch we just had as an example, or having a private chef that used to cook all of our meals. These are examples of things that like showcase a lifestyle that I think for many people is there's an element of luxury to it. There's an element of like, wow, like that's awesome. Like if I'm not there yet in my business, like I maybe feel a little triggered by that because I'm like, I judge that, but I actually secretly want to be that. This is what you'll often find with celebrity. There's this kind of like push-pull tension. Like we tend to kind of like judge the thing when on a deeper level, we really want it. So there's this magnetic kind of tension that's created in you showing up in that way where you start to show people aspects of yourself that represent aspects that they aspire to be. So this oftentimes is as simple as just asking yourself, like, well, who do my ideal clients really want to be? If you can really reflect on, like, what is that identity or what is that self that this person really wants to step into, and how can I show that through my content, through my messaging? And if you're a health coach, you're helping people lose weight. Seeing you like prancing, around the beach in like a bikini and looking like a supermodel is probably going to create some tension for the people in your audience, but it's also going to create magnetism. It's going to make people feel like they want to pay attention to you because they aspire to be like you. They aspire to feel that way, to feel confident, to be able to have that kind of a body, to be able to walk around and feel, just confident in their own skin. Seeing you embodying that is a moment of celebrity. You're creating that distance. So these are examples of how you can do this in your messaging. And when you do this well, when you balance these two elements, celebrity and relatability, in terms of how you're showing up in your messaging, what you do is you create that moment where someone feels magnetized to you, you decommoditize yourself, you create deeper connections and personal bonds and relationships with the people in your audience. And you, again, the whole, I think, point of all of this is you create that moment where someone says, you're my person. And when someone feels that way, and special credit to Scott Oldford, who really helped me understand this, one of my mentors who I've been working with for years, awesome business mentor. When you create that moment for somebody else, you can charge a lot more. People are not comparing offers. They're not like, oh, well, yours has 6 features and theirs has 8 features, so I'm going to go with the 8 features. No. People don't think like this when they have that moment of connection and relatability with you. So this is the goal of building likability. So on a practical level, what is this about? It's about showing people who you are, bringing the parts of yourself more fully into your messaging, sharing your values, your beliefs, your personality, your lifestyle, also showing up honestly and vulnerably. This is another piece. Sharing the things that you're afraid to say, the parts of yourself that maybe you feel are embarrassing or that you have shame about. When I talk about some of the failures I've experienced in my business, these are some of these things are still alive for me. Like, they're challenging times. This season for us, as I'm teaching this, I'm like, there's always this voice in me that's like, how can you embody this more fully in this moment? This has been a really challenging season for me as an entrepreneur. That's the honest truth. We've been going through the last 6 months have been like a major pivot in our business. I feel like we're still getting our footing underneath us in this new space. And it's been a challenging, difficult season. Also on a personal level, we moved from Denver to Boulder. And it's been very expansive for me to step into a new self, a new identity, to move into a home that is, much nicer and is in many ways a representation of who I'm becoming. But there's a part of me that if I'm being honest, that I feel like I haven't fully really anchored into that yet in myself. I'm still kind of holding the tension between who I was and who I'm becoming. It's a hard place to be. And so that has been alive for me as an entrepreneur, the last few months. Hasn't been an easy season. It's been one of the most challenging seasons I've had since I started my business. So sharing vulnerably, like talking about those things that you're afraid to share, building more of that relatability and connection by being a human being. I think a lot of this is about that, not being afraid to show people who you are. All of this builds trust. It builds connection. It creates that moment where people, again, feel more connected to you. And ideally, they have that moment where they go, you're the person. Hey, friend, hope you're enjoying this episode of the podcast. And before we get back to it, if you're an established online business owner who's serious about unlocking your next level of income and impact and growth in your business, I want you to watch my free $1 Million online business training, where I walk through a 4-step roadmap I've personally used to sell well over $1 million of coaching, consulting, and courses online. It's going to make the journey of growing your business so much easier. I want to give this to you for free. All you got to do to access it is go to jasonmoss.com/growth. That's jasonmoss.com/GROWTH to get free access to this training right now. Now back to the episode. Going back to this idea of being a likable guide, positioning yourself as a likable guide, this likable wing is so important. And if you don't have this piece in place, you're going to have a hard time. But there's another piece to this, which is the guide piece. This is oftentimes what a lot of folks I see online really struggle with. And this piece is equally important. You got to balance both of these things in your business, the likable and the guide. The guide is essentially showing up in a way that positions you as someone who can guide the person in your audience from where they are today to where they want to be. Someone has to see you and they have to go, you're the expert. You're the person who can help me. You know your stuff. I'm confident that you have the skills, the knowledge, the expertise to be able to take me from where I am today and help me go from where I am today to where I want to be. If you just show up as likable all day, you're just sharing lots of personal stuff about yourself, people are going to be like, oh, you're amazing, but they're never going to pay you any money. You know, there's plenty of friends I have that I really like them, but I never hire them. So this other piece is equally important, which is showing up in a way that communicates your expertise, your authority, your ability to help people solve a problem. And how do you do this? There's really a couple of components. The first thing is a lot of this comes down to creating a moment and moments in your messaging where other people feel like you understand what they're going through and seen and heard through your messaging. What this really comes down to is about reflecting back to your ideal clients their challenges, their problems, their dreams, their desires through your messaging in a way that holds up a mirror to their life experience. In other words, if I were to say to you, do you ever feel like you're just missing clarity when it comes to growing your online business? Like you're amazing at what you do. You know you can help people. You've been able to create success already. You're doing really well. But when it comes to unlocking that next stage of income and impact and growth, you're just not entirely sure what the right next steps are to take. And you're working really hard in your online business. Like I see you. You're busting your butt. You're helping clients. You're spending your time on your marketing. You're working hard. But sometimes it feels like you're working too hard. It's like, does it have to be this hard? Like, is there a way this could be easier? Is there a way that I can make more money without feeling so stressed? Yeah, I want to have freedom in my business. The reason I started this thing in the first place is I didn't want to work like all the time. I wanted to have flexibility, to be able to work from anywhere, to be able to take time off, to be able to spend time with my family, to travel, and to be able to make enough, more than enough, so I could live abundantly. When I look at where I am today, I just feel like I'm not there yet. I know there's that next level to unlock, but I'm not entirely sure the right next steps to take to get there. Now, if that's you, you're listening to that right now and you're like, you literally describing my life. You probably feel really seen and heard and understood just by me reflecting back to you your life. It creates a moment of validation, a moment of, oh, this person understands me. I'm not alone. So much of messaging is about this. When it comes to building your positioning as a guide, this is really what you're doing. You're showing up in a way that creates that for somebody else. Reflecting back to them their life experience. so that when they see you, they go, you really get me. You understand me. You know what I'm going through. And when somebody feels that, they automatically trust you. It's almost assumed that you can help somebody like solve that problem if you're just able to describe it clearly. Just being able to do that for somebody creates that moment where they're like, well, this guy understands me, he probably knows how to help me. So being able to reflect back to somebody in a way that does that is really such a big key to messaging success. Now, in order to do this well, you got to understand your people. And I think one of the biggest things that trips online entrepreneurs, business owners up is they haven't taken enough time to really do this and to really deeply empathize with their ideal clients and what they're going through. This is not just about, doing a couple quick surveys and being like, okay, I kind of understand the surface level of what people want. This is about really immersing yourself into your audience, about really deeply understanding your people, who you're here to serve. It's why I'm such a big fan of market research. It's one of the first things I do with every single client that I work with, even established online entrepreneurs who've been in the game for a while. I just did another round of market research in our business. I'm always doing this because I think it's really important, especially as you scale a business. It's very easy to start to, as you grow, you kind of separate yourself more and more in many ways from your audience. You got people working for you. You're less on the ground floor. You're probably doing less like one-to-one type stuff, more group stuff. It's easy to start to get detached from the actual real life lived experience that your ideal clients are going through, but really being able to understand that and truly empathizing with that, to be able to feel what it's like to be them. This is so important. It's not an intellectual thing. It's like when you write a piece of content, can you take 30 seconds before you write the post and close your eyes and just imagine what it's like to be this person that you're writing to? Imagine what their challenges are, what it feels like on a daily basis to be them. Then open your eyes and write to that person. It will land completely differently. And what you're really doing through this, when you reflect back to someone, is you're creating that moment where they feel seen. First step, super important when it comes to positioning you as a guide. Now from there, also really important that this person feels like you know your stuff and can actually help them. This is where sharing elements of your expertise are really important. When I talk about, selling well over $1 million of coaching and consulting and courses online, helping thousands of online entrepreneurs, the thousands of clients that we've signed, the fact that I've been doing this for 18, years building online businesses, these are examples of things that I'll pepper into my content that position me as an authority, as an expert, not just some random person who's like got some advice about an online business, but someone who really knows this journey because I've lived it. So being able to position yourself in this way, sometimes it's just about slipping in those little, what I call credibility one-liners. It's like you could tell someone like, here's what I've learned about building an online business. Or you could say, after helping thousands of online entrepreneurs, here's what I've learned. So you could say the same thing, but the second piece has that little credibility one-liner at the beginning that establishes your authority and expertise in the mind of somebody else. Creates that belief shift moment where they go, oh, this person seems like they really know what they're doing. They've helped a lot of people. They've probably helped me too. So this is an example of how we might do this. Another part of positioning yourself as a guide is talking about your process and how you help people. I use this example often. You think of the organization AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, I've never been an alcoholic before. I don't plan on becoming one. But I'm familiar with AA. And pretty much everyone I know is too. And you probably are as well. Why is that? Why is it that this organization that helps a very specific group of people has this widespread awareness? Well, I would argue it's because they have the 12 steps. And even if you don't know alcoholics or you've never been an alcoholic, you probably know about the 12 steps. Alcoholics Anonymous has this process, 12 steps that you can walk through if you're an alcoholic to become not an alcoholic. And that process, just knowing that that organization has a process creates a lot of safety for the person who maybe is struggling with addiction. If I am an alcoholic and I see this organization that has a process, these 12 steps that I can walk through in order to solve my problem, suddenly I'm like, oh, I can trust this. It creates a lot of safety in my mind. So when you talk about your process and how you help people, this is not about just dragging people into the weeds of all the details of what you do, but just being able to say, hey, when I work with clients, we go through these 4 steps. First, we start, by getting clear on their niche. Then we, start by refining and tweaking their offer. Then we focus on their audience growth strategy. And then finally, we master their enrollment inside their business. And we really lock that piece in. That's an example of our process when I work with clients. That creates a lot of safety in someone else's mind. Because the rational mind, the intellectual mind, the part of your ideal clients that's really like, it's the fear-based mind is another way of putting it. It's always looking for a reason that things aren't going to work. And so if you just get on a sales call with someone and you're like, I can help you, and I don't know what it's going to look like, we're just going to figure it out together. That part of that person's mind is going to be like, hold on a second. You just tell me we're going to jump off the deep end into like an abyss, and there's no steps, there's no process. How do I know it's going to work? But if you're like, we're going to go through these 4 steps. The steps could be completely made up. They could be completely irrelevant. But even just hearing that there's steps, that person's mind, that part of that person's mind that's like looking for a reason it's not going to work, it's like, oh, okay, I trust that there's a process here. I can relax. Now I can step into my intuition more fully. The part of me that really wants to do this. So talking about your process creates safety. When you talk about your steps, your method, the way that you help people. There's a lot more to this too. We cover this in the workshop. There are a number of other reasons we talk about your process, a number of other things that you want to do when you talk about your process. If you want to get those details, you can sign up for the workshop. Again, it's on my website, jasonmoss.com. It'll be the best $97 or whatever it is that you've literally ever spent in your life. We're not going to get into the details today because this is a very long podcast already. But talking about your process, super, super important. And finally, very important as well when it comes to positioning yourself as a guide, you talking about your proof. Because someone, hears that you can help them and their heart wants to believe it, but they're also like, how do I know it's going to work? So you also need to show up in a way and communicate through your messaging that builds that belief of like, this is going to work for me in someone else's mind. So this is where sharing testimonials, sharing your own story of transformation. A lot of people are like, well, I don't have a lot of testimonials. I'm like, that's fine. Just talk about your own story. Generally, the reason why you want to work with people on something is because you've been able to navigate it successfully in your own life. So like when I first became a business coach, I didn't have any clients when I first got started. I just started talking about, here's how I built, this 6-figure coaching business. And here's how I helped scale this, multi-7-figure coaching business when I was a director of sales, and just talked about my own experience and my own story and my own A to B. So that's an example of how you might do that. Talking about, your own story, sharing other testimonials, super important as well. Really creating that belief in somebody else's mind of this is going to work for me. That's why we do this. So these elements of building your positioning as a guide, being able to create that moment where somebody else feels seen and heard and understood, reflecting back to someone their life experience, building your positioning as an expert, someone who can really help people by using those credibility one-liners, talking about your process, and finally showing people that it's actually going to work for them. These are the foundations, the building blocks to positioning yourself as a guide, as someone who can help this person who's on the other end get from where they are today to where they want to be. And again, when you do this well, what you do is you build that confidence and trust in someone else that you can actually help them get the outcome or the result that they want. And this is why people pay you. So going back to this phrase of being a likable guide, which I think really sums up the goal of great messaging, how you do this in your content, you got to really balance these two things. It's like trying to take a plane and fly. You got to have the 2 wings on each side for the plane to fly. If you just got one of them, the plane's not going to fly very far. So for example, in our business, one of the things that I think I've consistently, I wouldn't say struggled with, but it's been something I've had to be really mindful of, is I'm generally really good at being like the guide, but I'm not as good at the likability piece. That's an area that I'm growing in. And so left to my own devices, if I don't like be mindful of this, I'll show up and I'll create a bunch of like really valuable how-to content like this, which is very how-to. But I won't show people enough of who I am. So I'll generally tend to attract more like transactional buyers and people who aren't connected to me on a very deep level. So I need to be mindful of this. And I need to remember to like talk more about myself and bring more of like my own relatability to the table. And also like really, this is an area that I'm working on in my business, like really like anchoring into more of that like celebrity archetype in my messaging and my content. Other people I see are really good at the likable piece. They're really great at building connection through their content. They're really good at showing up as themselves and building a really strong magnetic personal brand, but they're not as good at the guide piece. In other words, showing up in a way that builds their positioning as an authority in the mind of somebody else. So that's the piece that they need to work on more. So a great question for you right now, just reflecting on this, would be like, what do you feel like your strength is in terms of those two and your messaging, likability or the guide? And what do you feel like is your biggest opportunity, the thing that you need to lean more fully into or really work on developing more in your messaging? It's the integration between these two pieces that is where the most success will come from. And when you're able to balance these two, and it's kind of like walking a tightrope in your business, really bringing both of these to the table. This is when you position yourself in a way that helps somebody feel connected to you, that decommoditizes you so you become the only for someone else, which means you can generally charge a lot more and you can get on sales calls with people who are, a lot more ready to go because they're just like, I love you. Like, I just tell me where to pay. But also someone really believes and feels confident that you can help them and that you can solve a problem with them and help them get to where they want to be. The integration between these two things is what gets you paid and what ultimately will allow you to grow your business a lot faster and more effectively. And also, on a deeper level, attract the kinds of clients that you really want to work with, the people you love, the people who are not just there because you can help them on the surface level, people who you really feel connected to on a deep human level. Those are the kinds of clients that just make it a joy to run your business. Those are the clients I want for you. And this is the outcome or the result of having these pieces in place in your business. So I hope you found this valuable today. And this is really just like a primer on messaging. There's so much more to cover. And inside our higher level programs, Accelerator, my one-to-one VIP program, as well as that 3-day marketing workshop, we cover so much more of the details on how to do this effectively. If you're like, this was awesome, I learned a ton inside this episode today, I want to dive deeper. I want more clarity on my marketing. I want just the ability to really understand how to market my online business more effectively, whether you're a coach or consultant, you're a course creator, someone who wants to just be able to really dial in your marketing and to be able to do this more effectively so you can grow your business as a result. Highly, highly recommend signing up for my 3-day marketing workshop. It's on my website. You can get the recordings right now. You get instant access. You can go through this today. You just go to jasonmoss.com and there's a link that says workshop. You should be able to find it there. So much value inside that training, and it's just going to make the process of marketing so much easier for you. So go check that out. So much good to come on this podcast, on this YouTube channel, depending on where you're watching it. I want to say thank you so much for listening, and I am looking forward to seeing you in the next episode.